Hi everyone. So this is the analysis of UPSC GS1 paper. जब मैं क्वेश्चन देख रहा था, I thought that this particular paper is little bit sociology heavy. Let's look at the question. See, question number 1 is asking about the geographical factor towards the development of ancient India. Very interesting question. If you look at the say India, let me draw a diagram of India. Okay, so here if you look at the Paleolithic age, old stone age, people wanted two things, stone and water. So and this group of people didn't know agriculture, so don't know the use of deltas or alluvial fans. So obviously Paleolithic sites we find throughout India, but then again they are absent in Indus plain or Gangetic plains. You should remember that. So that is the geography of Paleolithic group of people. एंड इफ यू केस यहाँ पे एग्रीकल्चर शुरू हो जाएगा न्यूलिथिक एज में, एंड स्लोली पीपल विल नो द यूसेज ऑफ deltas or alluvial fans. They will start migrating towards the or start setting up their settlement around deltas. We see because of agriculture there is sedentary village life will emerge. Chalcolithic age again copper stone age, so similar kind of things will again surplus होगा, pottery शुरू हो जाएगा, ये सब होगा. Indus Valley civilization, next important milestone is Indus Valley civilization. This is a this age is also known as Bronze Age. Okay, Indus Valley civilization में अगर आप देखोगे, we see Paleolithic, Neolithic, we have sites across India except the fact that Paleolithic में Indus Plain या Ganga Plain में कोई site नहीं है. But if you look at Indus Valley civilization, this is around somewhere around here. Easternmost part will be in UP, Western UP में है. That is Alamgiripur, Jammu Kashmir रहेगा. So over this is the geography of Indus Valley civilization. And if you look at over here, we had 1400 towns, and Indus Valley civilization में India will undergo fast urbanization. 1400 towns रहेंगे, and in this 1400 towns, what is that is most important aspect is almost all these area are by and large semi-arid regions. So यहाँ पे एक जगह है मेहरगढ़ करके, बालूचिस्तान में अब है, where they will, so Mehergarh is also known as Proto-Harappa. That means the knowledge of agriculture, the Harappans learned how to do agriculture from the people in Mehergarh. Okay, anyway, by and large semi-arid region, and eventually Indus Valley civilization will decline because of most of the accepted theory is that environmental causes. See, such a large settlement but semi-arid region, so the carrying capacity, when the carrying capacity of that particular civilization has breached, that will bring an end to the Indus Valley civilization people. Now people will slowly abandon the cities and will start migrating. Indus Valley civilization may we have three phases now, that no need to write actually: early, mature and late. Mature age may we will see maximum number of cities and towns emerging. Latter stage we will see people are living Indus Valley civilization settlements. Vedic age, then this group of people will come from say Anatolia Plateau or what we call Asia Minor. Again, just like their predecessors, they also will settle the by and large in this particular area. Okay, that means Indus region may they will start settling. So early Vedic age may will see that this group of people are settling around in and around Indus region. Okay, but during latter Vedic age we see emergence of iron, and because there is emergence of iron, so यहाँ पे क्या होगा? See, this part of India is thickly forested. Because this part of India is thickly forested, so emergence of iron, they will be able to use the iron tool to clear the forest, and eventually they will build up the cities. So if I show you briefly, अर्ली वैदिक एज सेटलमेंट यहाँ पे इसी के आसपास रहेगा, लेटर वैदिक एज में यहाँ तक आ जाएगा. दैट मीन्स इफ यू सी द डिफरेंस, अर्ली वैदिक एज पीपल यूज्ड टू लिव इन द इंडस in and around. Now the shift has happened. People have shifted from Indus to Ganga because they are able to clear the forest and create settlements. So they have shifted to Ganga. And second most important factor is this group of people now use now had idea to know how to use iron tools. Okay. So that is how the Indian settlement will emerge. Okay. Then after later Vedic age, we will see emergence of Mahajanapada. Mahajanapada is in early Vedic age. What will happen after the fall of Indus Valley civilization? The ruralization will happen. People will start, migrate, and rural villages will be created. Vedic age may will see rural economy, but towards the end of later Vedic age, we see the highest political unit will be Janapada. That means small groups are becoming bigger and bigger. In Mahajanapada, we will see emergence of large states. We have around 16 Mahajanapadas. But see, there is also an importance of geography. Out of the 16 Mahajanapada, we will see that rise of Magadha, because Magadha will subdue, and for the first time we see emergence of Pan-India Empire. Pan-India Empire. Why Magadha will subdue all others? Because here while talking about that, you can explain that. See, Magadha is essentially यहाँ पे है पाटलिपुत्र. Okay. So यहाँ पे पाटलिपुत्र, Magadha. See, if you look at say Bihar, नीचे क्या है? Towards the southern side we have huge forest, Chhattisgarh, Chotnagpur plateau and all is there, and on the upper part the Ganga is there, so the Gangetic plain is there. So Magadha, if you see, one part of Magadha we had vast fertile tract, another below Magadha it is surrounded by large forested region. So from forest etc., and this group of people had knowledge of agriculture. So because of knowledge of agriculture, they could create a new weaponry. First, second, because of there is a forested region, they will get the elephants to fight the war with them. So that is the, and to build chariot also they had easy access to forest, so easy access to timber. Those are the major reasons. And another major reason is, see, if you want to build an empire, you need to have a large standing army. You cannot have a large standing army if you are not, if the states or Mahajanapada's income is not very high. But because this was a very fertile tract, so agriculture was very high. Other reasons are there, but these are the major reasons why particularly Magadha will emerge as a or dominate the Indian scene completely during the times of in fact, if you see over here, for the first time we'll have a pan-India empire. Okay. And then the Nandas of Magadha will be defeated. Aryan invasion bhi hoga is time pe. Then Mauryas and Guptas. Okay. Mauryas and Guptas again they will follow up, but by and large the epicenter or seat of power will stay with Patliputra. But by the time we see Harsha is there, what will happen over here? That if you are staying over here, you cannot control the invasion. See, if I broadly do this, if the seat of power is in Patliputra, obviously you cannot guard the northwest frontier province. So that's why by the time of Harsha, we'll see shifting of seat of power to Kannauj. ठीक है, पाटलिपुत्र से कनौज चला जाएगा. And eventually towards the closing of ancient India, we see particular Rajput group called Tomars will build Delhi. Why? To safeguard, to safeguard the northwest frontier province, which has been a issue for for all of the rulers. If they wanted to safeguard India, they need to be closer to the vulnerability part of India. Okay. So that is done by and large. You can talk about that, where the sites etc. And another thing you can mention over here is we have Vindhya and Satpura range is there. That is the geography which has separated the North Indian culture from the South Indian culture. This physical barrier acted as a cultural or technological barrier too. Now once we are done with that part, you can talk about the megalithic culture in the southern India. Megalithic culture you already must have read about it. You can also briefly mention about Sangam age. But the most important question is, see, if you see the southern India, it is essentially a Deccan Plateau. Deccan Plateau being, it is a basaltic lava plateau. Basaltic lava plateau. So it is not very suitable for agriculture. First, second, we don't have perennial rivers. All of them are mostly seasonal rivers. Because Ganga was a perennial river, so Magadha could build a pan-India empire. but यहाँ पे and they had a very fertile tract of land, but in South India we had many kingdoms, but none of them could build a pan-India empire because they didn't have enough fertile tracts first. Second, they didn't have perennial rivers. So that is the major reason they didn't have enough money or enough surplus money to go for a all India conquest, what essentially was done by the Mauryas and etc. Okay, Nandas, Mauryas, etc. That way you can write the answer. So geographical factors towards the development of ancient India. Done. Yes, this particular question I have covered in our, this is a question in our prelims test series. Prelims test series mein hai, and I have given the why it is, what is the cause behind it, the explanation. We have discussed about geography of Vedic people. अभी तो ancient India class चल रहा है, ये सब चल रहा है अभी. Here I have explained how the whole migration has happened from here to here, how from India how we have shifted to, so from Indus how we have shifted to Gangetic Delta. Okay, that shift, etc. So yes. Now question number 2. What was the difference between Mahatma Gandhi and Rabindranath Tagore? Tagore is known as Gurudev, and Mahatma Gandhi obviously is known as Mahatma. Okay, anyway, now the answer they are asking education and nationalism. Interesting, the debate was going on also this point of time. Now if you look at education, Gandhi versus Tagore. See, Gandhi talked about Nai Talim, Nai Talim, and in Nai Talim Gandhi is talking about when we are giving education to a group of people or students, we are talking about skill set, building the skill set. So skill based education, as well as he wanted to have a value based education. He also focused on vocational training. So if you see over here, Gandhi is not only wanted to build a skilled man but a wholesome man. That means if you, in Gandhi's scheme of things, he is building a good man or good human being who is a good addition to the society or a good citizen, we can tell. But in Tagore, Tagore's idea of education is completely different. While Gandhi is talking about how to build good citizen or good man through skill based education, through vocational and value based or ethical education, Tagore is talking about the goal of education is self realization. That means in Tagore's world, education should build saints, not only just a human being or a good citizen, should build a saint. So that is what their major difference was all about. That you can talk. And Tagore, you can briefly say that. See, Tagore in his childhood had a bad experience. That's why he wanted to he hated the traditional schooling system. According to him, traditional schooling system is puts the children who are like flowers within inside a book, which suppress their critical thinking. That is how Tagore sees the traditional system of education. So he was against the traditional system of education, but according to him the objective of education was to build saints, but we cannot have we cannot make everyone a saint. So Gandhi's, I can say it was more realistic, whereas Tagore's were more or drifted towards too much of idealism. That discussion you can do over here. Second part is, I am not going to go into too much details. If you look at nationalism, Gandhi versus Tagore, what you can see, if you look at Gandhi, nationalism was very much important to Gandhi. Okay, Gandhi was all about nationalism and nation state. Gandhi saw no wrong in nationalism or patriotic ideas. Okay. However, if you look at Tagore's understanding of nationalism, he was more of a internationalist. इसका मतलब क्या है कि while Gandhi is talking about कि सारे जहाँ से अच्छा हिंदुस्तान हमारा, that kind of see, nationalism is exclusion of certain group of people and it is only a geographical, see, nationalism is born out of geography as well. So it's very narrow, it's very exclusivist. This is the opinion of Tagore. So he believed that if you want me to be a patriot or a nationalist or an internationalist, he believed that it is better to be a internationalist. So in accordance of Tagore, he was against the nationalism. It might be a violent form of nationalism or maybe non-violent form of nationalism. Either way, he didn't like the idea of nationalism. Instead, when he was questioned by one of his friends, he said that between patriotism, if I have to surrender, I will surrender myself to the humanity rather than to patriotism. Okay. And this particular thought process, this point of time, it was obviously something that that triggered him. This point of time, Japan undergoes excessive nationalistic urge, and eventually this excessive nationalistic urge results in imperialism. Japan starts conquering other parts of the world. So that's why he didn't like nationalism much. For him, it was internationalism or what we call humanity. The same kind of philosophy also we find in, say, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Same kind of philosophy, internationalistic philosophy we find in Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Even Vivekananda's reading also talks about that. But they are not against the idea of nationalism. But Tagore didn't like nationalism much because he saw what is happening in Japan. He says that doesn't matter if there is too much of nationalism, it will result to the outer world, it will result as imperialism. That's why he didn't like it. But Gandhi was all about nationalism and nation state. Okay. But then again, Gandhi, according to him, there should not be any. He wanted a decentralized nation where he talks about Gram Rajya and Swaraj. That means that is the reason why some of or he wants to build a village republics. So there is no central authority, only self-autonomous villages are there as a nation. So this particular model by political scientists has been called as anarchist. So Gandhi was labeled as anarchist because of this particular model, but nonetheless he was all about nationalism. These are the major difference. So Gandhi talked about nationalism and building a nation, and he saw nothing wrong with it, but Tagore disliked nationalism and he went for internationalism. Okay, so these are the two most important factors. Moving on to question number 3, bring out the socio-economic effects of the introduction of railways in different countries of the world. Different countries of the world, then it becomes world economy, but we cannot know, we have so many countries around the world, and because of railway what happened where. But nonetheless, by and large, we can say that the railway had a positive effect to the society, to the economy altogether. So what are the things that you can write? That because of railway, we see emergence of cities and towns. See how it is, cities and towns prior to these things. Most of the time, when we find a city or a town, they are near to the river, near to water bodies. Most of the settlements were like that. But now, when there is a railway line going on, we see emergence of cities across the railway lines. This is known as, this kind of settlement in geography, it is known as ribbon settlement. And we saw that is happening. Cities and towns emerging because of the railway line. Socio-cultural exchange and diffusion took place because railway enabled socio-cultural exchange and diffusion, technological diffusion as well. Agriculture expansion happened because now they can agricultural goods can be carried throughout the Indian market or anywhere in the world. So by and large it has a positive impact on employment, trade, commerce, etc. Most importantly, there was an increase in GDP. If you take Indian example, we had around 17% of GDP increase. So positive boost to the economy. You can talk about, you can give one example of Trans-Siberian Railway. If you look at Russia, there is a railway that crosses through that is the main line, main channel, which is connecting. Russia is a vast stretch of land, so connecting the east with the western part of Russia. So that is one very important railway line, very difficult to build. Okay. Apart from that, see, by and large railway has a positive effect. But if you see the railways built in say USA or Europe, in the early years it was mostly built upon the backbone of slavery or slaves brought from Africa. So it has for those particular societies, it has just intensified the problem of slavery. That example you can give over there. And there is a editorial, let me show you. There is a report in UPSC by economist called Dave Donaldson, Indian Railway. See, I want you to pay attention to two things, that there was a GDP increase of 17%, and you read this whole editorial, you will have ample example to quote over here. And another important aspect is, here you can also add this particular statement that Karl Marx wrote that railway is going to change the whole society, but he also added that trains would also dissolve traditional social arrangements. That is what Karl Marx is talking about. And over here another part is there that also can help you while writing this answer. Specifically 6 major findings are there. 6 major findings are there. Okay, how that, read that Dave Donaldson report, UPSC site mein available hai. See, when I say food security, it has 2 dimensions, agriculture and livestock. Any farmer, if you look at their income, 70% comes from agriculture, 30% from livestock. So if you see the net effect of climate change on livestock, tropical countries hai, so the heat stress will increase. Because the heat stress is increasing, obviously the productivity of the livestock will go down. That means our dairy productivity, etc. will go down. So negative impact on our food security. Agriculture, if you look at agriculture, initially if you look in the short term, for a very short period of time, see, agriculture, the plants will go for photosynthesis. So major reason of climate change is global warming, and global warming is driven by excessive concentration of carbon dioxide. अगर atmosphere में थोड़ा carbon dioxide बढ़ गया, it's like agriculture will be on steroids. Okay, that means in a short term there we might observe there is a boom. Okay, boom production in agriculture in tropical countries, but eventually it is going to run out. In the long term, the net effect will be negative. Okay, why? Because locust attacks will be more, pest attacks will be more, the productivity of the plants could not take up the heat stress as well. So these are the major reasons. Another factor you can talk over here is climate change will bring extremity. Extremity meaning it will create or increase desertification. Increased desertification. That means some part of world and some part of India will see deserts are taking over on those areas, and other extremity is floods, cyclones. Frequent cyclone and flood obviously will devastate the crops, will have a bad impact over the livelihood security of people as well as food security. So that is there. But see, I told you for some period of time there will be boom. Here also, if you let me give an example, say we have river Ganga, and the origin of Ganga is in Gangotri Glacier. Gangotri Glacier is 90 square kilometer. Okay. Now, initially when there is a global warming is happening, the glacier will melt more and more. That will give more and more river to Ganga. So when there is more water in Ganga, this will obviously result in better yield. People will use that water to go for better yield throughout the year, crop rotation, ये करके yield will be by and large better. But scientists accumulate that the positive gain will be only for 30 years. इसके बाद क्या होगा? Suppose the whole Gangotri glacier disappears, then there is no Ganga. So in short term we might see some kind of boom, maybe because of carbon dioxide induced boom, or maybe because of availability of more water in particular regions. So parts of the tropical area will observe boom, no doubt about it. But in long term, as I explained, will suffer. And apart from that, if you look at say India, okay, or in any tropical country, much of our habitation is around the coastal area. Much of our we are very much dependent on coastal zones. Now climate change will result in sea level rise, and because of sea level rise there will be submergence of fertile tracts throughout the tropical areas. Apart from that, displacement, huge scale displacement will happen, not only in India but across tropical world. That is another cause you can talk about here. So the net impact of climate change will be negative. There will be food security will be severely threatened, even because there will be food insecurity. Obviously it might impact our socio-political system as well. It might be a threat to democracy. There might be civil war as well. So these are the major causes. We have more drought areas, and we'll see floods and cyclones which are destroying a lot of food or cultivated area. So we have the cultivable area eventually, because of climate change, will decrease. So there will be great stress on our food production systems, no doubt about it. Moving on, why the world today confronted with a crisis of availability of and access to fresh water resources. Obviously, see यहाँ पे UPSC में editorial है. It's a very interesting line. Thousands have lived without love, but no, not one without water. Anyway, this gives you some data sets that you have to quote in your answer. Apart from that, there is a water editorial का है पूरा. This water के ऊपर जो editorial है, it is in istreet.in करके है. वहाँ पे है पूरा editorial. I think very in depth throughout the world editorial is there, so you can use that to answer this question. This is pretty doable question as well. Okay. Why is the world today confronted with a crisis of availability and accessibility of fresh water resources? Obviously, climate change, global warming is one of the major reasons. Apart from that, diversification of water resources for other purpose, and we are polluting our freshwater resources. We are because of our agriculture, because of our industrial activity, we are using the water, which is essentially a very important life supporting system, and throwing our garbage inside the water. If you look at Ganga, we are dumping Ganga, and whatever we find we want to dump, we are dumping it in Ganga. That waste is most of the time is untreated waste. So major, these are the major issues. There are lot, बहुत सारे example देके लिख सकते हो आराम से. You read this editorial, this data sets, that should be enough. अच्छा, Jords, how are the Jords formed and why do they constitute some of the most picturesque area of the world? So this is a Jord in Norway. Most of the this kind of lands we find in Norway, and these are glacial landscapes, okay, or what we call glacial valleys. If you see your global seed vault, which is located in Svalbard, Norway, इसके आसपास मतलब in and around we have a lot of forts, okay, and this particular answer you can, how Jords are formed, what kind of valley they are, all these things you can easily write from your J.C. Leong book, no need to any other reference, but you can mention कि इसका contemporary relevance क्या है, okay, why it has been in the news, etc. Okay, why is the southwest monsoon is called Purvaiya or easterly in Bhojpur region? How has this directional seasonal wind system influenced the cultural ethos of the region? I don't know why they have asked, so you have to just cook up an answer. ठीक है, भोजपुर कल्चरल इथोस क्या है? We might write about छठ पूजा, जो मन में आ रहा है लिखो. ओके, फोक डांस, फूड, ठीक है, छठ पूजा, folk dance, food, etc. You can write. See, now I was thinking why they have, this is a very typical question, and why they have asked it. We have a UPSC member, Sri Rajiv Nayan Chobe, who is from Patna. Okay, so maybe we should attribute this particular question to sir, because he might have thought about asking this one. Very typical question, we don't know what to write, you just have to cook up an answer. Okay, and see, you can, in the beginning you can write ki by and large almost all our if you look at Indian cultures, it is mostly influenced by monsoon, and almost all our festivals are inspired from the monsoon, because we are a agrarian society. So all our culture, festival, etc. is woven around our agriculture. So यहाँ पे भी the food habits, the custom, the tradition, etc. are in and around that only, and that is because of the monsoon. So that way you can write the answer. Question number 8. Do you think marriage as a sacrament is losing its value in modern India? It appears true because we come across a live-in relationship, बहुत सारे हो रहा है अभी. Second, Supreme Court has granted it legal status. Okay, so that means you can stay in say live-in relationship, you no need to marry. And marriage जो एक concept है Indian system में, Indic system में, it is considered as sacred, सातों जन्मों का रिश्ता and all that, right? But there is a rise in divorce as well in India. So how much it is true? See, if you are blindly writing the answer to this one without data sets, most of the time there is a high chance that you end up doing answering it wrong. See, whenever we feel something, we believe in something, always go and look at the data sets. The data sets might be telling you something different. We think that marriage में divorce are happening, so and marriage is as a institution is losing value, but how much it is true? Let's look at that. Now this particular topic was there in the news May 2023 में, and Supreme Court said that love marriages were the leading cause of most divorce in country. Apart from that, they also यहाँ पे constitution bench ने if you are applying for mutual divorce, you have to wait for 18 months. But to annul it. But then again, Supreme Court said that it can use its discretion power to let people get away from the marriage which is beyond repair. Anyway, May month में ये hottest topic था. That's why it was asked. let me show you some interesting statistics. If you look at the data sets, countries with the lowest divorce rate, India is the one. India यहाँ पे है. The divorce rate in India is 0.01%. If you compare with other countries, see, other countries तो बहुत ज़्यादा ही है. If you look at modern advanced countries, divorce rate is very high. But in India, it is such a very low in India. So, as I told you, as I gave you the statistics, marriage in India is still sacred, is still considered, and divorce is considered a taboo in India. Doesn't matter the socio-economic and political status of a person, and India is one of the lowest one with a divorce rate, 0.01%. So, do you think marriage as a sacrament is losing its value in modern India? No. The broad answer to this is no. Although, the proper response to that question is, no, marriage as a sacred institution is not losing relevance in India because the statistics says so. Nonetheless, instead of marriage, we see or observe there is a rise in live-in relationships, and Supreme Court has granted legality and protection to this particular live-in relationship. So there might be more and more people will be wanting to go for live-in relationships rather than getting tied within the bounds of a marriage. So that might be the case. But by and large, marriage as an institution is intact in India. In fact, India has the lowest divorce rate in the whole world. See, what we think and what the data says are completely contrasting, isn't it? Okay. Question number 9, again sociology heaviness we are observing. Explain why suicide among young women is increasing in Indian society. See, suicide is a personal tragedy. The tragedy can have multiple factors: social, economic, religious, so many, political, so many factors are there. Okay. But why young women are choosing to end their life and there is a rise in that? See, there is a very interesting news that I caught. Young women are jumping into wells in Barmer. It is a suicide epidemic. ये पढ़ना इसके बारे में. This was in the news. Okay. Current affairs में भी discuss हुआ है. Now over here if you see, which are the states जहाँ पे सबसे ज़्यादा suicide हो रहा है? If you look at the state with highest degree of suicide, that is Maharashtra, followed by Tamil Nadu, Madhya Pradesh, West Bengal and Karnataka. These 5 states contribute 50% to the suicide rate. Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Madhya Pradesh, West Bengal and Karnataka. Okay. And see, suicide is very personal in nature and there is a regional variation of cause. We cannot generalize the cause, although we have some generic answers to that, but then again we cannot, we can barely generalize each suicide and put them in a particular bracket. Nonetheless, we are trying to understand the suicide scenario in India. See, this data I have taken from NCRB, National Crime Records Bureau. उनका एक रिपोर्ट था 2021 में आया था. You read that report. Over there they talk about suicide. This kind of data sets you have to take from official channels or official, or at least established. You have to quote also that according to NCRB's data set or report. That way you can legitimize your answer. Now, if you look at the suicide, तो हमने देख लिया क्यों हो रहा है. What is the major cause of suicide? Again, this data set, as I told you, is from NCRB. Major issue is family problems. But see, our question is asking us to understand why young women are dying, isn't it? Why young women are committing suicide in India? Maybe that is mostly because of family problems. Family problems can be burden. Sometimes the young woman born into a poor household is considered as a burden, and there is a burden on her to do well so that she can get a they can pay the dowry and get a groom. Okay, so that burden is there on the young woman. So most of the time this burden ends in suicide. Okay. Another interesting aspect that I observed over here, much of the young women who are dying, they are not typically illiterate, neither they are very literate. Let me explain. Most of them have 10th matriculation certificate है उन लोगों के पास. So what is the point of having education then, if it is not going to change their life? That creates a lot of disappointment, that essentially crushes their hope, and that is the reason why most of them are committing suicide. Young women are committing suicide. Obviously that along with the burden that पढ़ के तो कुछ हुआ नहीं, मिला नहीं, life has not changed. Because if you want to change your life, you have to have at least a graduation level degree, otherwise you cannot get a meaningful job or employment. So that issue is there. So crushed hope, burden, the family tells from the familial perspective or koi type any kind of family problem makes them feel like they are a burden, and that drives them to commit suicide. That's a very interesting aspect coming out of this. Illness is second major cause. Okay, drug, alcohol abuse. ये भी एक say in Punjab and all, young women are addicted and then committing suicide. Marriage related issue, this is after 18 years only. We are talking about young women, so we can briefly mention, but marriage related only say 4.8% है. यहाँ पे देख रहे हो familial problems, that is love affair. Another cause we can attribute to that young women are committing suicide. Bankruptcy और indebtedness इतना ज़्यादा नहीं हो सकता. Unemployment हो सकता है. Professional career problems इतना ज़्यादा नहीं हो सकता क्योंकि they have not started their career. Death of dear person, yes, we can say that. Poverty is another cause or major cause, young women committing suicide, because poverty creates burden, then burden creates pushes one to do the suicide. Property dispute, failure in examination ये हो सकता है, but these are the minor cause. Okay. Suspected or illicit relation ये भी एक हो रहा है अभी, जैसे if you belong to a very caste rigid family and you have chosen a partner who is not in your caste or lower caste, then मुश्किल होता है. That also results in some kind of fear. Impotency, fertility ये भी cause है. Fall in social reputation ये भी cause है. So these are the cause you can by and large attribute, but most of them will be, or the biggest one among them will be family problems. And we are talking about young women who are mostly not married. Okay, that's what the question is asking us. Now okay, so this is another statistics. Okay, this is interesting statistics. As I told you, see, this is male, this is female. If you look at the male and female ratio, below 18 years, look at this, I forget this much, not to our use. Below 18 years, if you see, here the women are dying more than men. Okay, because when we say young women, obviously young men are dying less, so the death of young women is higher than death of young men. Below 18 years, we can see that over here, that is happening. That data, or that is very important to understand the whole scenario. Second part over here is, see, another interesting aspect that I told you, that no education only 11%, but matriculation level is 24%. See, people are studying till matriculation level and then committing suicide. If there is no education, we can understand. If there is primary level of education, even no education कम है. Primary education में है, matriculation तक है, because I told you that hope factor and disappointment factor adds to the burden. So that way you can answer the question. Now question number 10, child cuddling is now being replaced by mobile phones. Discuss its important impact on the socialization of children. Socialization of children. So this is a sociological concept actually. Socialization is teaching a children. Through socialization, children learns the values, develops attitudes, belief system, etc. Okay. How an individual develops? The children essentially learn from their immediate parents and then their immediate neighborhood. Okay. So socialization में parents का role बहुत ज़्यादा है. That you should remember. Look at the parents. They are addicted to their phones or mobiles. This is what is observed by the child. Most of the time the child's develop hyper attention deficit disorder. That also happens because the child is not getting the time from the parents. There is attention disorder develop hota hai. So the child observes that my parents are engaged in the mobiles all the time instead of instead of the interaction with the child. So the child is alienated. Right. And when I am talking about child, say when the child learns how to use the mobile phones, the child is addicted. Then if you visit any of your relatives and they have a child, most of the time you will find them doing YouTube or watching YouTube shorts or Instagram reels all the time. Why? Because the parents want free time and they want to engage the child, so they give the child a mobile phone and वो दिन भर वही करता रहता है. So all their learning is coming from YouTube shorts. और वहाँ जो whatever they will learn, what kind of value, attitude, belief system they will develop, we all know that. Okay. So the child is alienated और उसे मोबाइल फ़ोन मिल जाता है. Now that child is addicted. ठीक है. So यहाँ पे between the parent and child there is a high degree of alienation. Both of them have created virtual worlds and living in their virtual worlds. So nobody knows what exactly the other person is doing. And when we learn from our elders, when we learn from our seniors etc., so we understand कि हम किस टाइप के सोसाइटी में रह रहे हैं, इसका वैल्यू सिस्टम क्या है, and all those things. But our understanding is limited. But when you are watching the whole world explode before you through your phones, so obviously your value, attitude, belief system etc., or what we call the socialization of that particular children will be different, completely different. That you should write in your answer. And another interesting thing is UNESCO जुलाई में रिपोर्ट आया था. UNESCO advocated that all the schools should ban smartphones. All the schools should ban the smartphones. That is the advocacy by UNESCO. Okay. यहाँ पे क्या होता है? The parent is not giving any attention to the child. When the child gets their mobile, they will also mirror the parents, completely addicted to the child. So the child is mimicking or mirroring the parents. So यहाँ पे the child will not learn what is our shared beliefs, values etc. And the socialization most of the time results in a negative consequence. This kind of atmosphere creates isolation of a child. Although the child thinks that he or she does not necessarily appreciates the society or the culture that particular person is living in. So that isolation and this lack of this interaction between the parent and child creates a void which eventually has a negative connotation for the child. That you can write. Moving on. Question number 11. What are the main features of Vedic society and religion? Do you think some of the features are still prevailing in Indian society? See, if you look at Vedic, what it is talking about? Two things. Society and second is religion. This is also I have discussed recently in our classes. Society में क्या है? What kind of society we have? It is a complex society, stratified society divided by Varna. Okay. Stratified society. When I am talking about Vedic age, I am mostly talking about latter Vedic age, not talking about early Vedic age. Stratified society, and if you look at the religion, यहाँ पे we have theistic religion. The important gods at this point of time, later Vedic age में Brahma, Vishnu and Rudra. These are the main deity or chief deity in Vedic age. Shiva was also there, that is Rudra. Okay. और क्या है रिलीजन में? And here society was pastoralist plus agriculture था, ठीक है. The economy, okay. They placed a lot of importance on two important animals, cow and horse. If you look at Vedic age people, they were very fond of cows because it was a economic animal. Had their status is determined by the number of cows they had, and horse they kept it because it was a very the horse gave it strategic. That was a strategic animal because they used to most of the time they used to engage in wars, and those wars were fought for cattle. Okay, so cow, horse, etc. Horse is kind of worshipped this point of time, and there are Vedic hymns that talk about asking the Lord to give a son, or so son preference was there, or what is known as son meta preference. Okay, son meta preference etc. is there. And religion में क्या था? This is the religion of cult of yajna. So in yajna, two intermediaries are there. One is the Agni. Agni is the intermediary that is acting between man and God, Agni, and that is done by a priestly class, what we call Brahmanas or priestly class. We are still, things are still continuing. Religion में क्या था? Religion, complex rituals were there. So briefly I talked about it. Now if you look at the contemporary, these are the society and religion. And if you see the contemporary India, are we a complex society? Yes, no doubt about it. Are we a stratified society? Yes, we are stratified. Caste is one major factor. Okay, Varna system तब से अब तक है. Pastoral and agricultural cease. 40% of Indians are still farmers. So that means that is still continuing. The way we used to do agriculture, we are still doing. Okay. So pastoral, some livestock we used to keep now. Also we are going for agriculture. That is still continuing. If you look at religion, canthenotheistic matlab it's like portfolio system we have allocated to God and Goddess. If you want say Vidya, you will worship Saraswati. If you want money, you will worship Lakshmi. So department assigned हुआ है. Similar kind of thing is still there in India. Okay. So polytheistic and canthenotheistic. Canthenotheistic matlab for different purpose there is a different deity, and polytheistic that is still there. Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra, still till today also they are considered as the major deity. Early Vedic age में Indra, Varuna etc. will be there as the primary god. Indra will be the primary god, but now Indra is not considered as a primary god. Okay. Cult of Yajna is still there. If you look at all the festivals that we celebrate etc. Yajna, if there is Yajna, obviously that is there. Okay. Yajna में क्या होता है? Sacrificial fire. We put offerings over there. Complex rituals तो अभी भी है. So by and large, the socio and religious milieu has not changed. The gods are remaining same. The way we do things are remaining same. Has not undergone any. At least the foundation of it is same. Or we see a higher degree of continuity between the society and religion. Obviously, this one interesting aspect you can mention over here, that in Vedic age it was a rural society, but now if you look at India, there is a rural-urban society. Okay. Status of women, पैट्रियार्कल सोसाइटी था, अभी भी है पैट्रियार्कल सोसाइटी, दैट father is the head of the family. Patriarchal, patrilocal and patrilineal, three things are there which is still continuing. Patriarchal, that means father is the head of the family. Patriarchal, patrilocal, that means the place of residence is at the father's residence. Okay. Patrilineal मतलब the descendants will be through the father's line. Okay, so those things are still continuing. That kind of society we are still so by and large high degree of convergence is there. Okay, nonetheless social mobility now and the social mobility then, there is a degree, there is a change in degree. Now our society is much more exposed to globalization, global values, but that point of time those things were not there. So those minor difference, you have to establish the continuity and the changes that we see in modern society and do a comparison with the Vedic society. That's it. Okay, doable. What were the major technological changes introduced during the Sultanate period? How did those technological changes influence the इंडियन सोसाइटी? ड्यूरिंग सुल्तानेट पीरियड यहाँ से 2-4 प्रीलिम्स क्वेश्चन भी आए हैं और दे हैव आस्क्ड अबाउट औराघट्ट, ये यूपीएससी प्रीलिम्स क्वेश्चन था. दे हैव आस्क्ड अबाउट गन पाउडर, हु इंट्रोड्यूस गन पाउडर, दैट वाज आल्सो ए यूपीएससी प्रीलिम्स क्वेश्चन. सो मोस्टली ये जो सुल्तानेट पीरियड है, दे आर मोस्टली फैसिनेटेड बाय द टेक्नोलॉजी. औराघट्टा इज अगेन पर्शियन व्हील था. ओके, irrigation system. Okay, that you can talk over here. If you look at the Sultanate period, Sultanate period, there is introduction of Persian wheel, there is introduction of charkha is spinning wheel, and chakri. ठीक है, charkha is the spinning wheel, chakri is the pulley that we use to drag the water from the wells. Okay, that is there. Then use of paper, this point of time use of paper also started. Another thing is gunpowder के बारे में बात कर सकते हो आप, and you can talk about see, they have introduced during Sultanate period, they have introduced something called Ghazi Sikandari. This is a measurement, yard measurement technique. Okay, और क्या लिख सकते हो यहाँ पे? हाँ, another thing you can write is, this point of time they have taken a huge construction activities. They have introduced arch, dome construction. They have used lime mortar as a cementing agent और सीमेंट. ठीक है, आर्च डोम स्ट्रक्चर बनाने शुरू कर दिए. डबल डोम भी बना, बाद में बना, बट बना. लाइम मोटर स्टार्ट कर दिया फॉर एज ए सीमेंट. सो दे हैव स्टार्टेड यूजिंग पुटिंग ए टिन कोटिंग. दे हैव स्टार्टेड टिन कोटिंग टू द यूटेंसिल्स. क्यों होता है कि सपोज क्या होता है, इफ़ यू आर पुटिंग सम फूड इन ए कॉपर प्लेट एंड इफ़ यू आर कीपिंग इट फॉर ए लॉन्ग ड्यूरेशन, वहाँ पे पॉइजनस रिएक्शन हो जाता है. सो दे स्टार्टेड डूइंग द टिन कोटिंग सो दैट देर इज़ नो रिएक्शन and all those things. So by and large you can write this question. Okay, moving on, question number 13. How did the colonial role affect the tribals in India, and what was the tribal response to the colonial oppression? All you have to talk about is tribal movement. See, the colonial rule threatened the way of life, culture and religion of our tribals. Okay, against which we have seen many tribal movements. You can talk about Birsa Munda and his Ulgulan movement. बहुत सारे ट्राइबल मूवमेंट्स हैं, स्पेक्ट्रम में तो है ही, ये लिख सकते हो आराम से. ओके, इजी क्वेश्चन टू डील विथ. Comment on the resources potential of the long coastline of India. Highlight the status of natural hazard preparedness in these areas. Okay, first geography question है. ठीक है. First we have to talk about coastline. If you look at the coastline, we have somewhere around near about 7,400 kilometers coastline. Okay. Now while discussing this question, you can talk about कि this is a coast of submergence. This is a coast of eastern coast is coast of emergence. Okay. Now because it is a coast of submergence, so in western coast we find a lot of ports, lot of deep water ports, but what we don't find is deltas, but we don't find any deltas. So that you can write over here, we don't find many ports. The number of ports less. We have Paradip, one deep water port, then Visakhapatnam, बाकी तो इतने सारे नहीं है ports. Okay, port number of ports are less because it is, but here what we find is deltas, extensive deltas are here, that you can write over here, which is good for agriculture. So apart from that, I am briefly talking about here. In coastal area, we are trying to push something called CEZ, Coastal Economic Zone. And how we are trying to create export hub across the coastal area, and we are trying to connect to the export hubs through different projects. We have Bharatmala project, etc. So ये coastal economic zone we were trying to build around the coast and create export hubs so that we can increase our foreign trade. So that is one of the major reasons. Okay. And what else we are doing? The long coastline resources potential, right? Here fishing, etc. you can talk about. Apart from that, you can coastline, we can from coastline polymetallic nodule mining or deep sea mining also we can go for from our coast. Those things are there. Briefly you can mention. But next part is highlight the status of natural hazard preparedness in these areas. Okay. The majority of hazards that we face over here are cyclones or tsunami. Cyclones or tsunami. Coastline mostly faces this, and much of our bigger towns, cities are in and around our, coast. So, cyclone or tsunami. Now, the eastern coast, यहाँ पे क्या कर सकते हो? Eastern coast is more vulnerable than the western coast as far as cyclones or tsunami is concerned. That you can mention over here. And what they are doing, say preparedness में आप क्या लिख सकते हो? You can talk about CRG, coastal regulation zone, etc. And here we are not allowing any coastal, what we can say, कि mining heavy coastal, activity. We are not allowing that. Given the sensitive nature of those coasts, we are, have restricted certain aspects of economic activity in these areas to safeguard them. Apart from that, you can talk about Misty scheme government of India has launched recently to create mangrove patches around that. Mangrove will give us kind of a it is a buffer or a shock absorber as far as cyclone or tsunami is concerned. So we are trying to create more dense mangrove cover across our coast, that you can talk about. Okay. Baki, apart from that, coastal areas we have some marine sanctuaries which are good for ecotourism, etc. So we are promoting that too. So बहुत सारे tourism aspect ये aspect पे लिख सकते हो. Identify and discuss factors responsible for diversity of natural vegetation in India. See, India, if you look at India, India is called a subcontinent. Why? Because almost all kind of things we find over here. If you look at India, the diversity is because of what? The diversity is because of the geography. Okay, nothing else. See, first you can, because it is a subcontinent, क्यों? पहले अगर आप यहाँ पे देखोगे, if you go to Jammu Kashmir, you have your Switzerland. थोड़ा राजस्थान आ जाओगे, you find the whole Middle East, पूरा desert मिल जाएगा आपको. गुजरात में यू विल फाइंड सॉल्ट पैंस इन रण ऑफ कच्छ. ओके, यहाँ पे इफ़ यू वांट टू फाइंड रिच fauna and flora, different kind of birds, you want to see hornbill etc., go to the Western Ghat, rich in biodiversity. Then if you want to find Western Ghat में क्या होगा, बहुत सारी चीज़ देख ली. Now if you want to see the tigers, elephants, lions are found in Gujarat, then in Madhya Pradesh and that region, and then Karnataka we find elephants, tigers. ये लिख सकते हो आप. बाकी यहाँ पे we have densely forested region यहाँ पे है. Okay, Vindhya Satpura is there. Okay, apart from that what else we have? We have Eastern Ghat over here, although Eastern Ghat and Western Ghat do touch. Okay, Eastern Ghat over here, so that is again another biodiversity hotspot जहाँ पे we find red sanders, so many things are there. Okay, and then we have northeast region which is completely almost disconnected from India except for the chicken neck corridor. So northeast में again because of the Brahmaputra river and mountainous region, that also represents or gives us a very interesting biodiversity. Apart from that, India is influenced by the heavy southwest monsoon which determines the diversity and vegetation of India. ये तो ख़त्म हो गया. और यहाँ पे क्या करोगे, इफ़ यू गो टू गैंजेटिक प्लेन्स एट्सेट्रा वी सी ह्यूज बेल्ट ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर. पंजाब में भी वही देखोगे, बट थोड़ी बहुत अगर हिमालय के ऊपर चले गए you'll find a lot of diversity as we go with altitude. With altitude the diversity keeps on changing. Okay, so that also it is there. So if you look at the natural vegetation क्यों है, first because India is home to two biogeographic realms. Two biogeographic regions. What is that? One is Himalayan region and another is Indo-Malay region. Okay, so these are the two biographic regions, convergence of which brings a lot of diversity. Second part is, if you look at Deccan region or what we call broadly South India and North India, India was created, यहाँ पे Eurasian plate and this is your Indian plate. They have collided with each other, bringing two different kind of regions altogether. Because of this collision we see a lot of diversity. Apart from that, Indian plate यहाँ पे completely basaltic lava. This particular region what we call Deccan, a lot of black soil is there. So basaltic province is there. Because of that we have different kind of diversity altogether over there. So it is mostly because of the geography. That is what you can say. South India we don't have perennial rivers, North India we have perennial rivers. So वहाँ पे जो flora and fauna है वो different है, यहाँ पे जो flora and fauna है वो different है. That you can talk over here. Okay. We have rainforest region. Vegetation अगर देखोगे almost बहुत सारी चीज़ हैं. If you have knowledge of geography, then you can divide the biogeographical realms in India. Desert है यहाँ पे, run of Kutch, salt pans, marshy wetlands are there that you can talk about. Okay. It is also asking us the significance of wildlife sanctuary in rainforest regions of India. Rainforest कहाँ पे है? यहाँ पे वेस्टर्न घाट में है, नॉर्थ ईस्ट में है वेस्टर्न घाट, we have north east and Andaman and Nicobar में है. In three parts we find rainforest, and Andaman Nicobar में तो almost 90% of that particular region is declared as protected area. Western Ghat में, north east में भी है. What is the significance of wildlife sanctuaries? Keeping the wildlife sanctuaries over there helps us protect the very rich diversity over there, because if there is wildlife sanctuary it cannot be touched and it cannot be exploited for timber etc. So that is one of the major reasons. Second reason is it also helps us protect that unique flora and fauna which are endemic to this region. So that you can mention. Question number 16. Why did human development fail to keep with economic development in India? Okay. If you look at till 1991, we had around 3% growth rate. So there was no economic development and no human development. We are not worried about those parts of our history. Leave that. We are not interested in that. We don't need to write about that. From 1991, we went for LPG, right? Liberalization, privatization, and globalization. In this point of time, what happened? Our GDP growth, we saw very strong growth rate, but our human development still lagged behind. Why? Because our GDP growth was coming from a particular sector, that is service sector, and service sector is skill intensive. Because service sector is skill intensive, if you have the skill, you will get a job in service sector. To acquire that skill, you need higher education. Higher education, you should have the money to go for send your children to higher education. So that means much of India could not afford the higher education. That's why they didn't get the skills. Because they didn't get the skills, they didn't got into service sector. Because they didn't get into service sector, they essentially remained as farmers, the way they used to do in say 1940s or 50s. Okay, so here one group of Indians who saw advancement because they were placed in service sector, better pay, etc., because they could afford the higher education, and because there were different kind of high paying jobs are available in that sector. But we didn't have any manufacturing sector, so rest of India, they remained engrossed in agriculture or remained as farmers, जहाँ पे disguised unemployment बहुत ज़्यादा है. Okay, though they look like as if they are working, but they are not working in true sense. So rest of the India didn't catch up. So there is a division within India, that we have parts of India, and the service sector has grown in urban regions. There are particular places जैसे Bangalore हो गया, जहाँ पे गुड़गांव हो गया. So particular patches of urban region we see growth of service sector. Okay, but rest of the India didn't catch up. They remained farmers. उनके लिए life 1950 में जो था 2020 में भी वही है, right? So that's why their human development didn't pick up. And when we say human development, we are thinking about two things, like life expectancy, the life index, education index, and income index. लाइफ एजुकेशन एंड इनकम. देन यहाँ पे आप HDI रिसेंट रिपोर्ट कोट कर सकते हो, दैट हाउ इंडिया इज़ ट्राइंग टू डू बेटर एंड बेटर. रिसेंटली मल्टी डायमेंशनल पॉवर्टी इंडेक्स अगर देखोगे, वी आर एबल टू टेक ए लॉट ऑफ पीपल आउट ऑफ पॉवर्टी. नाउ इंडिया में पॉवर्टी रेट क्या 17% के आसपास है. सो वी आर सेइंग दैट द प्रोग्रेस हैज़ बिन slow, but nonetheless India is doing far better. We are trying to create a manufacturing base so that we can create a alternating employment opportunity for the people who are unnecessarily engaged in agriculture sector. Doable question. Question number 17. From being net food importer in 1960, India has emerged as a net food exporter to the world. Provide reasons. Reasons क्या है? We have Green Revolution. Other reason is Richard Nixon humiliated our Prime Minister, saying that Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, who got angry and wanted to do something so that we are not called as the begging bowl of the world. We had a very food scarcity at that point of time, and Americans gave us food under PL 480 and humiliated us. That's why she thought this is not going to be sustainable for such a huge population. So we went for Green Revolution. We can talk about Norman Borlaug. We can talk about father of Green Revolution in India, that is M. Swaminathan, and how we went for high yielding varieties. What are the things were engaged in it. You can talk about IR8, which is known as Miracle Rice, and you can talk about इंटरनेशनल इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर जो फिलीपींस मनीला में है, और इंटरनेशनल एग्रीकल्चरल रिसर्च इंस्टीट्यूट, ऐसे कुछ है नाम उसका. सो उसके बारे में बता सकते हो. दे हैव केम अप विथ हाई यील्डिंग वेराइटीज़ एंड हाउ वी फॉट दैट. सो दैट इज़ वन एस्पेक्ट, दैट इज़ फाइटिंग द एग्रीकल्चरल एस्पेक्ट ऑफ फूड स्कैर्सिटी. देन सो यहाँ पे ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन हुआ. देन वी हैड ऑपरेशन फ्लड. also known as White Revolution. White Revolution, this is exceptional production of milk and or dairy products, milk or dairy products, and the father of it being Varghese Kurian. उनके बारे में भी लिख सकते हो आप, how he channelized the and how he created Amul. Okay, how cooperative society, how he integrated the cooperative society and created such a huge brand and brought white revolution to India, that you can talk about. Okay, so agriculture हो गया, food हो गया, and many other reasons are there. You can talk about the planning commission क्या किया था, थोड़ी बहुत क्रिटिसाइज भी कर सकते हो थोड़ी बहुत. Question number 18, does urbanization lead to more segregation and marginalization of poor in Indian metropolis? Okay, it is kind of true, because if when a person is migrating from a rural area to an urban area in search of food, in search of employment, most of the time a ruralite ends up in a slum. ठीक है, the question is indirectly asking कि how the ruralite who has migrated from rural India to urban India is suffering because once although he gets an employment, he has to live in miserable conditions in the slum, जहाँ पे ठीक पानी potable water is not there, sanitation or hygiene is not there. So यहाँ पे how is marginalized. Another aspect of marginalization is that rural area में इतना there was no sharp division, but here when he looks at the cities there is a sharp division of class is there, so obviously he feels more marginalized. These aspects you can talk about. Sometimes it is not necessarily that person feels marginalized, because यहाँ पे nobody is asking him going to ask him what is his caste or what is his class or other things, which maybe if he has belong to a lower caste in rural area, those caste related marginalization is very rigid in rural area, जो urban area में नहीं है. So there are two aspects to it. There are some interesting aspects where in urban area the marginalization is more, specifically if you look at the class related aspect, but in rural area caste related aspect applies more. Okay, and then the slum and the associated issues you can discuss over here. Why caste identity in India both fluid and static? Okay, see, when other societies have class, India has caste. Caste in India is nothing but derived from profession, right? Now, Indian Supreme Court saw that in India caste is equivalent to class. While giving the OBC judgment, Supreme Court said that caste is equivalent to class. क्यों? Depending on your caste, your profession is there, and depending on your profession determines your economic status. Okay, economic status. Now, what is happening in India that we see that in rural area we can say कि caste rigidity is still there, caste induced profession people are still practicing, but in urban area we don't see that. People are taking up profession whatever they choose. So here if you see the caste identity in rural area we can say it is still rigid, whereas in urban area it has become fluid, right? One aspect. Second aspect, a person belonging to the caste is not taking up the caste related profession. Most of the time we are seeing they are going for different professions based upon their education. So education, if they have access to education, that is changing their profession. When the profession has changed, it is obviously changing your economic status. If say in caste we have three groups, okay, so four layers, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Sudra. Okay, suppose a person belonging to say Sudra Varna takes up a job and does some other job, यहाँ पे उसका economic status will go up. So in his social mobility may not be there, but economic mobility is there. एंड कास्ट ये जो था, वन ऑफ द रीजन्स वाई कास्ट was class because invariably the economic status was similar. But now what we see in Indian society is that caste तो वही है, मे बी कास्ट लोअर कास्ट है, ठीक है, बट उसका इकोनॉमिक स्टेटस ऊपर चला गया है. सो what we feel over here is there is a disjoint, ठीक है, economic status is better, so obviously fluidity will be more, the social mobility will be more. Apart from that, government has been promoting intercaste marriage, government has been you can talk about intercaste, you can get money from also if you go for intercaste marriage. And then there is yes, affirmative action to ensure social justice, economic justice and political justice. So these are threatening the caste based rigidities in India, and by and large we have been to a greater degree we have been successful. See, another interesting aspect, you can how do you identify somebody's caste or his identity? By knowing their surname. Okay, there is parts of South India where they don't use surname at all. Okay, suppose there is a girl, the girl will take up the surname, the father's name as a surname, and once the girl marries, she will take up her husband's name as surname. So over there you cannot immediately identify what is the caste of that particular person. So obviously this point of time what is happening, people are losing out their surname, so obviously they are losing out their caste identity. That is also has been observed in India. Okay, so static कहाँ पे है दिखाओ, fluidity कहाँ पे है दिखाओ, and give some examples. Then again, this is not a typical question that should be asked in GS1, but then again, as we are becoming more and more complex society, we can expect this kind of questions. Apart from that, because globalization hai, so the value system, our understanding of caste etc. is changing, so that aspect you can mention. Discuss the impact of post-liberal economy on ethnic identity and communalism. Difficult question hai, looks like a sociology question, typical sociology question. Post-liberal economy, again we are talking about post-LPG. Post-liberal economy मतलब after 1991 क्या हुआ था, ठीक है. Post-liberal economy on ethnic identity and communalism. Ethnic identity and communalism. See, one way when we say ethnic identity, that means this, when we say कि we belong to a particular group, that means that group has some common value, common system, common beliefs. But after the liberalization of economy, there is high degree of migration, rural to urban migration बहुत ज़्यादा हुआ है, rural to urban migration. And because of the opening of our economy, this resulted in what? We are exposed to the values of globalization. So this, because of the suppose a person has lived his life in rural India completely, do you think their belief systems is going to change overnight? No. But when the same person goes to a city, goes to an urban area, because there is employment avenues and other things are there, so migration is there and globalization. And when that same person, because of internet etc. is exposed, even if he is staying in that village, but exposed to the world view, world ideas because of the globalization and internet, obviously his value system is going to change. It may challenge his ethnic identity altogether. So that we have been observing as well, because जो आपका आइडेंटिटी है, that has been questioned over here, and there is a chance that an individual may not subscribe to the particular ethnic's ideology, idea, or what we can say that their world view. Okay. When a person is going and migrating, what we see is a cosmopolitan outlook is developing. Suppose a person or a child who was born and brought up in, say, in a particular kind of, particular, say for example, you are a Telugu kid who has all his life has lived in, say, Andhra Pradesh or Telangana for that matter. Can you know what is the culture of Punjabi, or can you know the culture of, say, Maharashtrian or say somebody else? No. But when you are living in a cosmopolitan area, like say Bangalore, cosmopolitan cities जैसे India में बहुत सारे हैं, when you are living in that structure, what happens is you are exposed to different values, different ideas, different ideologies, different food system. So your chances are that you are migrating out of your, your ethnic identity or your group identity, and you develop a better holistic identity, and you are appreciative of others, and at the same time you may reject some things that you find alien to you. That is what is happening around India and around the world altogether. Nonetheless, so that means what is happening over here, the ethnic identity, there is culture, and then obviously there will be a counter culture. One is a Indian culture, यहाँ पे काउंटर कल्चर से वेस्टर्न कल्चर. So when an Indian is exposed to the Western culture, we tend to dig up our culture as well. So this is also has been happening. काउंटर कल्चर का फाइट चल रहा है, और से civilization what we call is at crossroads. So our Indic value system ideology is at the, whenever there is a chance that most of the time they come into conflict with our global or globalized values. Okay, so that is there. Counter culture is there, and if you see a lot, because जैसे मुंबई हो गया, ये हो गया, बहुत cosmopolitan cities है, and when Maharashtrians could not get a lot of job in Mumbai, politics started altogether. Son of soil movement, ये सिर्फ महाराष्ट्र में नहीं है, बहुत सारी जगह पे हुआ है. That the local preference to the local. So this ethnic identity are creating politics also. Okay, some ethnics feel marginalized, and when they feel marginalized by other group, they treat them as outsiders, and then they try to drag them out of the picture. So that is happening. So, and this is happening, and this is giving rise to communalism as well. One community threatening other community. Okay, so that is happening. Within OBC also, this ethnic identity happening because of post-liberal economy. This post-liberal economy has benefited only few and marginalized many. So it has created inequality. It has sharpened the inequality among the population. So when there is higher degree of inequality among the populace, obviously the ethnic divide will rise. Okay, and that's why see this, when there is inequality, obviously this kind of son of the soil movement, etc., is because these things are interrelated. Okay, when you develop an ethnic, so you can talk about that what happened after post-liberal economy, how the cosmopolitan outlook has developed, how the culture and counterculture do exist and fight with each other, how the global values, what we call globalization. That is localization of global values. Okay, not only values, a lot of things, but mostly we are talking about values or identity. Okay, Maharashtra ka son of soil movement and how it is, this kind, not only Maharashtra, बहुत सारी जगह पे हो रहा है अभी. So how it is creating that communal fight, how it is increasing the communalism, that also you can talk about here. Okay, but mostly if you look at the question, this is a sociology heavy question, and by and large questions are doable. But if you are someone who had sociology optional, definitely you will do better. So thank you, and we'll do the GS2 analysis soon.